Now, moving along, I want to talk to you about today's program. We are very fortunate to have our speaker today, and David Schuchman is going to talk to you about how to work as a consultant in the gig economy. I can't imagine any topic that would be more relevant than this in today's situation, right? So many changes going on in the employment world, so many people leaving their full-time jobs. It's been called, as you know, the Great Resignation, or other terms that are similar to that. So many people are shuffling their job around, leaving their job, starting new ventures, new businesses, changing, joining new companies, and a lot of them, are becoming consultants and going off independent to provide their own professional services. So the timing couldn't be better. You're going to learn all the things that you would expect with regard to becoming a consultant in this gig economy as more and more people are becoming self-employed. Most importantly, you'll learn the benefits and the differences between being an employee versus being a consultant or a contractor in today's work world. If you look here in the middle of the screen, you'll get a very good idea about David's background, which is impressive to say the least. He's very, very active in helping job seekers and career transitioners, specifically in the New Jersey area, but we're lucky enough to have him here for Beacon today. You can learn more about him at his LinkedIn profile, or you can learn about his career service work at PrincetonTechnologyAdvisors.com. So with that being said, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here, and especially thank you to David. And now, David, I'll throw it over to you, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you, Ford and Zoe and Ken, for the invitation. It's certainly a treat to be here, and nice to meet all of you. Just give me one moment to share my screen. There we go. So you should see the introductory screen, how to work as a consultant. And so just nod or smile, and then we'll know that that's the case. And we get ourselves started. And I understand the process here for questions and answers is typically you will use chat, and I believe Ken and Zoe will be monitoring that. So please feel free, post your questions in chat as we go along. And I will have 2 intermission points, because we kind of break up these topics into 3 groupings of topics, subtopics, and plenty of time at the end. So there'll be 2 intermission points where we can read some of your questions and address them then, and have plenty of time at the end as well. And so as we get started, I just want to let you know there are a couple of program caveats that you should just be aware of. I am not an attorney. I'm not an insurance rep. I'm not a tax professional. And so just be aware that that's the case, but I just kind of play one on TV. And so really what this program is, we're friends talking to friends. And I'm happy to let you know what I've learned along the way, having transitioned from a 30-year corporate career at a few companies into now owning my own business and as a consultant, and some of the things that I learned that you may have an interest in learning about as well. But there'll be a couple of times along the way where I will let you know, just like it says at the bottom, consult a tax or an insurance professional or a business law attorney specifically to discuss any of these points and how they pertain to you. So we'll be talking about some, high level, basic type stuff to get ourselves started. Okay. So the curtain opens and we get ourselves started. And let's first kind of talk about what the gig economy is and what we're seeing in the marketplace. And it's not, companies now tend to contract. They've been doing it for a few years. Companies are contracting with independent consultants and temporary workers for a specific job or a specific project. And that is the gig. And then what happens is the gig workers, if it's you and I, we're the independent contractors or the contract firm employees or part-timers assigned to these temporary flexible jobs. Now, most of this presentation will talk about being an independent contractor. And the reason why is when you are employed by a consulting firm and you are placed on contract, on their contract, your relationship is really one of being an employee. You'll get your W-2, you'll get your tax statements at the end of the year, and maybe they'll give you benefits and such. So here we're going to talk a little bit differently or mostly about independent contractors, but I'm happy to address any of your questions on any of the employment types, and I'll be happy to answer those. But for a lot of us, it is going to be the future of work, especially now that companies are shifting more and more to independent consultants. And they're doing it more and more for bringing in us as older, experienced people, when sometimes they're a little gun shy about hiring older, experienced people. But as an older, experienced person, maybe 45 years, 50 years or older, companies are needing our expertise, wanting our expertise, are calm under pressure, but they're more willing to hire us on a contract. Also, it helps them manage their budget a bit better as well. So what is a consultant? And basically, you're a person as a consultant. You provide a service, expertise, expert advice, professional skills. You do so professionally. And you're working under a fixed contract to complete that specific project. So when you think about it, what are you? You're a hitman. You're going in to do a specific job, and then you get out. And in New Jersey, these are the most famous hitmen that there are. So I just thought I'd have a little bit of laugh with that. Let's kind of contrast some of the differences between being an employee and being a consultant. And these are just kind of the top of the list. If you've got questions about specific ones I don't raise, I'm happy to answer those for you. Typically, when you're employed by a company, when you're hired by a company, you can receive benefits. And for a lot of people, this is the most important thing next to, of course, salary, that you can receive benefits. And there are all sorts of benefits like healthcare is partially paid for, personal time off, and the like. Typically, when you're a consultant, there are no paid benefits. And so what you need to do is you need to account for that on your own, build that into the rate. And we'll be talking about rates later. So, and over time, maybe you'll get paid for it or maybe not, depends on the nature of the contract. And benefits you'll have to pay for, vacation time you'll have to account for. As an employee, your employer actually pays half the FICA taxes, also known as employment taxes, which is basically the Social Security and Medicare portion. And so it comes out to, I believe it's 7.35%. So when you get your paycheck and you look at your paycheck and you see this FICA line, whatever amount you are paying for that paycheck, your employer is paying the same amount for you. But when you're independent, you pay the full 15.3%. This is not Pennsylvania, this is a federal employment tax. And so you will pay the whole amount. So just be aware as you think about your rate that you'll want to make sure you cover the additional 7.65%, or what you'll also want to do is make sure that your rate covers all of the other potential expenses that you may have. As an employee, you get paid by a paycheck. Typically, it could be weekly or twice a week, twice weekly or monthly, however your company is. And at the end of the year, you get a W-2, a form W-2, which lets you know how much you earned and how much of different income taxes were taken out. As a consultant, you are typically paid on what's called a 1099. And you may have to issue an invoice for the amount that you would do for the latest time period. You can choose to do that weekly, quarterly, monthly, whatever you want. That's between you and your who you engage with on contract. And at the end of the year, your hiring company will send you a 1099 MISC. And this is usable for both your Pennsylvania and federal income tax reporting. It will not be taking out taxes. You will be responsible to do that on your own. So your income and payroll taxes are paid out of your paycheck when you're an employee. And so you filled out a W-4 form when you first came on board. It talked about how many exemptions you may want, and that's sort of basic information. And so income tax is taken out at each paycheck, and then at the end of the year when you file your tax return, you just true up. As a consultant, you have to file your estimated income taxes quarterly. And it's a very easy process. It's a little slip of a form. Once you figure out what the tax is, you simply pay that amount and fill it out on the form. At the end of the year, just like you would with your regular income tax, you will true up there as well. Your reporting goes typically on what's called Schedule C, unless you're hired on a certain corp level. We'll talk more about types of corporations and business entities in a moment. Typically, as an employee, you have very limited income tax deductions. There are very few things that you can actually write off and expense on your own income tax. This used to be a bit more generous. Each of the reworkings of the tax code eliminated a little bit more. The latest one in 2018 eliminated many of the deductions. So for instance, if you were working from home, you may not be able to deduct your home office as an employee. If you keep an extra printer at home or you have pens and papers, you may or may not be able to deduct those. You will have to talk with your own tax professional. The reason why those are eliminated is because if these are things important for work, your company should be providing it. That's kind of the mindset behind it. As an independent consultant running your own business, then all these types of expenses, most of them, I should say, are going to be expenses ahead of your income before you report your income to taxes. So they're tax deductions. So I'm sitting here with you. I have a brand new desktop computer at my feet, just bought it a month ago. That is now a tax deduction against my current year income. And I had, when the COVID started, I bought a new Logitech camera that I'm looking at you with. And that was deducted last year. I've got my laptop to the left, not using it now, and my printer on the right, some office supplies. All those are tax deductions for me. Even sometimes traveling to and from a client can be a tax deduction, depending on the nature of your types of visits. So there's a lot of income. I'm even deducting part of my home expenses as a home office, and that reduces my tax as well. So you will need to speak to your tax professional to see what is appropriate for you and your business. So what's in it for the client? Why might they hire us or contract for us as a consultant rather than as an employee, a full-time employee? And there are really a number of reasons, and some of the big ones are, first of all, we're a lot easier to hire and fire. They don't need to go through the HR. They typically don't need to go through their attorney or legal department, although they may have the attorney draw up a contract. And when the contract is over, they let you go. There's no need of reporting, as many states do require. Terminations are reported to the state. They don't have to come up with reasons for terminating you. Your reason is the contract ended. So it's a lot easier to bring on board and off board a consultant, a contractor, than it is for bringing in a full-time employee. And by the way, the term consultant, contractor, freelance, they're all kind of interchangeable. There's generally no long-term commitment. And some of us may argue, well, in today's at-will employment model, there's no long-term commitment anyway. Okay, I'll give you that. But typically, a contract is for a fixed term. You may be brought on for a 6-month assignment, a 9-month, 12-month assignment. They could extend it, but at least they know that for the project, it's of a specific length. When it's over, they can eliminate that expense by having the contractor leave the project. They generally get a very objective and seasoned team member. And it's really a different mindset. The reason why this is, it's a different mindset to why hiring companies bring on people as contractors as compared to why they bring on people as employees. A lot of times they bring on people as employees because they like the person and they feel they can work with that person for 8 hours a day. And anything that's missing in their background, they'll learn along the way or be taught. As a consultant, you are being brought in for your specific expertise, and they're not worried about long-term working arrangements and happiness with you because they know it'll be ending at this end of the contract. And the same is, you generally do come in with skills the employed team doesn't have. It's not always the case for the same reason as before, that they are hiring you as an employee with all the skills that they need because they just see you as a valued employee. And they'll teach you some things that you don't have. But as a consultant, you come in hitting the ground running with those key skills that they need. And ultimately, it saves them money because rate aside, there's no benefits that they're paying for. They're not training you because you're coming in with those skills. They're not paying for your time off, your legal holidays, those sorts of things. And when the contract ends, it ends, and they're not paying that long term. Also, certainly as we are older employees, and I'm in that bucket, I'm 61, but as older employees, if we are hired, we show up on their employment pool to all of their benefit providers, and specifically life insurance vendors, as well as medical insurance vendors. The rates will go up if the average age of the employee pool goes up. Contractors don't impact that. So if they're hiring younger people and contracting for older people, the average age of the employee goes a little bit down, and they can save a little bit on the cost of their benefits. And you do know companies every year or two do try to renegotiate the cost of their benefits to get better deals. But what's in it for you? So now we know what potentially is in it for the company. Well, for you, at the very least, it fills a resume gap. If you are still of the mindset that you must have full-time employment, and hopefully at the end of this presentation, you'll be much more open to considering contract employment, but you may be able to take a small contract, maybe 6 months or a few months before you actually get your next full-time job. And this becomes very relevant because a lot of hiring managers do have a prejudice or a bias against hiring people that have a long gap who've been unemployed for a long time. You know, they may go through their own mind and say, gee, if David hasn't been working for the last 6 months, no one else will hire him. Why should I? I'll hire somebody else, somebody who is employed or with a smaller gap. So here you have mitigate the unemployment bias. And there's no problem if you have a number of these contract gigs, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, in between your last full-time and your next full-time employment, because all you have to do is say, oh yeah, I was an independent consultant, but I am interested in this full-time position. You're usually paid more than the employees. And it's funny, as employees, we sometimes grumble when we hear what contractors are paid on a monthly basis. But if you want to have a little bit of a surprise, go pick up your last paycheck, not your contract, but your paycheck, and divide it by number of hours that you worked. And you'll be surprised at actually how low. You're probably paid maybe $50 an hour or so, but you also are getting paid benefits and matching 401s and all those other things. But you'll get paid on an hourly basis much more than the employees. Some of that will be because you are the expert in the field that they want and you're worth a little bit more money. And other is to cover some of the additional costs of being a consultant, like your personal time off and your benefits. It does give you a current position on LinkedIn. You will have now a 100% LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn has several requirements to have a 100% complete profile, or sometimes they call an all-star. When someone searches for someone like you, not when they search for you by name, but when they search for you by your role or your career, you're hoping to come up near the top. And LinkedIn does have a search algorithm to figure out how they should pull people and put them on the first page. Among the people that come up to the top are people with a 100% complete profile. If you don't have a 100% complete profile, you'll be in the next group below. A current position is one that does not have an end date. So it might say like March 2019 to present, and the present means that it's current. If it has an end date, like if it was, March 2017 to January 2019 as an end date, it's not a current position. So you do want a current position on LinkedIn, and being a consultant does give you a current position. You may have the opportunity for greater variety in your career. You may have a broader line of experience. There are a lot of industries that do prefer to hire people with industry background. Pharmaceuticals and medical devices tend to be industries that are known for that. Some financial services sectors are very known for only hiring people with those backgrounds. But when you're a consultant, they want you for your core project experience, what you can do for them on this project, and they may not care as much about your industry experience. What does that mean for you? If you're not in pharma right now, but because you're an expert in financial planning, a pharma company may bring you in, and what goes on your resume? You worked in pharma for 12 months. Now you can even appeal to a full-time position in pharma. You've got that experience. And companies are also more willing to hire contract, as I mentioned before, for older staff while they hire younger staff. So it gives you more opportunity. You'll be able to find more employment opportunities. You'll be able to apply to more positions because you'll be open-minded to apply to contract, not just an employment position. So be open to being in a contract because you'll be open to more opportunities. And you may say, well, I'm interested in a contract position as long as I know it's a contract to hire position. Well, a lot of companies don't promote their contract to hire positions as such. They do promote them as contract positions. They may not figure out they need to hire you until you've been there for 6 months. And so it's not a contract to hire position until they've gotten to know you and see you work and just see how valuable you are to the organization. So be open-minded to all contract positions. They may turn into a contract to hire. And that happened with me when I was a hiring manager in the early 2000s. About 2002, we started a big project in my company and I was managing it. I was the IT manager for that group. And we brought in a contractor. And the contractor, we told him this is going to be a 9 to 12 month project. And he was okay with that. Well, the project ended and this guy was very valuable. So I let my boss know we could really take advantage. His name was Ray. And we kept him on for some additional work. About another year later, we hired him. And he wound up being there longer than me. And actually, it was good fun. I had lunch with him last week. So I never had that posted or even an idea as a contract to hire, but Ray was just invaluable and he stayed with the company for a long time. So if you want that opportunity, be open-minded for being a contractor. So hopefully I've given you some thought as to why to be a contractor or consider it or be a consultant, but there are probably some naysayers that think, no, there are still reasons why I should not be a consultant. And let's kind of talk about some of those. For instance, you may not be treated as well as other employees. And maybe you've been in a company before where you've had consultants and contractors, and you kind of think they're not treated as well. So that may be possible. On the other hand, you may be hired as an employee and not treated well. That actually happened to me in one company before. A company I moved to in 1999. I was all high about the position. They seemed interested in me, but once I got there, they were really kind of miserable to work with. I lasted 4 months and moved on to another company. So it was my choice. So you're not always treated well just because you're an employee. And besides, you could actually be treated better, because you are the expert. You're the one that they want to speak with. I was actually on a 3-day contract a number of years ago, not 3 months, 3-day. It was in suburban Chicago. I was flown out to Chicago. I started on a Monday, came home on a Thursday. And when I got there, 9 in the morning, it was an early morning flight. I met the manager, who was the CIO, Chief Information Officer. He said, glad you're here. Here's your office. It was a nice office right next to him. And he gave me a list of people I needed to talk to about the project in the accounting and finance department. And so I walked over, and the first person I spoke to in accounting, very nice woman, I think she was the assistant controller. And I introduced myself. She yelled at me, do you know how long I've wanted your office? I've been in this company for so long, and they give this office to you, someone just here on a contract? That's unbelievable. So she was very unhappy, but I was treated better. I got the nice office. So sometimes you are treated better. You know, maybe on a contract, you'll be unhappy. You'll really be happier as an employee. You might be unhappy as a contractor. You know, you might be unhappy as an employee too. Remember that story I just told you, a company I started with in late 1999. I wasn't happy. I didn't settle in. I didn't fit in. It wasn't a fit for me. I left after 4 months. That was my choice to do so. You know what? If you're in a contract and it's 6 months or longer and you're not happy, you'll move on. The contract will end, but you'll be getting great experience. You'll be getting paid, a lot of benefits. So don't worry about being unhappy. Of course, if they're treating you very miserably and unfair, that's different. But if you're just not happy in the role, don't worry. Bite your lower lip, do the work, get the experience, and move on. You know, you may have some unpaid administrative tasks that you have to do as a consultant. Sometimes you have to provide extra timesheets or provide invoicing. You certainly have to look for your next gig as your current one is winding down. You are not directly paid for those tasks. You are paid for the hours that you are working at the office. But you know what? You have larger hourly rates, and that makes up for some of the downtime or the time that's not directly paid for. So maybe you're really worth $70 an hour. Charge $80 an hour over the course of the contract that covers the cost of your admin costs. Now, I just use that as an example, not a very specific case for you. But you say, I can't be a consultant. I need benefits. And I've lost count of the number of people that have told me that. I've been active in job seeker support for many years, and people will not look for consulting positions. But as I talk it through with them, I'll ask, how long are you willing to wait to find that full-time position for benefits? As long as it takes. And they'll ask, well, what happens if it takes another year? How are you paying for your benefits? Well, I'm paying for it out of the bank. I can't afford that. So then what I tell them, you can buy benefits. You will get paid, especially with larger hourly rates. And so instead of taking money out of the bank, you will just take part of your salary, part of your income, and buy the benefits. You're paying for them anyway out of your job income when you're in full time. Of course, your company pays for some of them. And we're going to talk more about finding medical benefits a little bit later in the program. It may only be short term. I really have a lot more time in my career. I need something more that's going to be longer term. Well, think about this. If you were on a 6-month contract that paid $50 an hour, and that's typically very low for professionals, but that's about $50,000. That's, of course, before taxes. So a 12-month contract is $100,000. What would you do with $100,000 over 12 months? Well, you can buy benefits, and you probably pay for most of your other expenses too. So just to give you an idea, don't worry if it's only short term. You're going to be paid a hopefully very fair wage. You'll get income as well. So even though you are having the little devil on your shoulder who may be saying you shouldn't be a consultant, hopefully a little angel on your shoulder can tell you reasons why it's worthwhile and quiet the devil down a little bit. Okay, so here is our first intermission point. And if there are any questions, put them in chat. There don't seem to be any questions right now. Of course, if you need to take a lunch break or bathroom break, you don't wander off too far. But if you've got a question, put it in chat. And please put it to everyone so we can all see it, or make sure that more than just myself or just Ford or Zoe read the question. So I'll just give you a moment or two here, as hopefully you are typing. Probably still have your microphones on mute.
Hey, David, I have a quick question. I know you talked about potentially the job turning into a full-time role and all. Do you have any sense, or is there anything someone can do to help that along? Or I guess maybe how often you think that might happen, but also what can you do when you're in that role to increase the odds of that, if that's what you're looking for?
I think, as always, you need to provide value to the employer. Hiring is a very, I don't want to say personal, selfish process. Hiring managers hire people to make their jobs easier. And their job is to deliver work and accomplishments for their company. And if you provide value, if you become someone that almost is indispensable, it increases the opportunity for them to reconsider you from consulting into full-time, or at the very least, maybe extending your contract. One friend of mine was brought on to Bristol Myers Squibb as a project manager. Her project ended, but she got brought on as a contractor again by Bristol Myers under another project through another boss. And the reason why was she was just invaluable to getting the project that she first completed done. And now, actually, just this month, she got hired. Her second contract ended, and somebody else needed someone just like her. So she was a value. And I think that's the best way to do it. You can't always know upfront going into it.
Yeah.
David, a question for you also. I was taken by your comment about how people are maybe a little reluctant when there are gaps on people's resume. Is that not a thought that has come and gone, recognizing the world that we're now living in, that it's more common now than uncommon to have those gaps?
Yeah, I think it should be less of a concern for anyone who's in the job market, who's searching for a job. It used to be a concern where people thought, it looks like I've left too many positions. I don't think that happens anymore, especially since there have been COVID was a big disruptor, and now the hiring market now is bringing on people very rapidly. Yeah, I think it's less of a concern and very explainable.
Yeah. And David, too, back to the turning to full-time, even regarding full-time, forget that. I think it's just a benefit as a consultant, you're in that company. So you have the opportunity to do some maybe internal networking to get those extra jobs that you described, or if you want to try to turn it into a full-time role. I think you have a foot in the door, so that gives you more options.
Well, you're certainly exposed to more positions, because when you're in the recruiting process, you're finding that one job that's posted. But now that you're within the organization, absolutely, you're right, that you have the opportunity to be exposed to other managers and see other positions internally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you see Cindy has a question in the chat?
Yeah.
I'll let you take it.
Sure. So thank you, Cindy. I have been doing a contract HR director role since March, and they've asked me to stay through the end of next year. It's my first foray into contract work. I'm enjoying it, but I've been told by some recruiters that there can be a stigma against long-term consulting when later looking for a regular employee position. Any thoughts on that? There's a stigma on everything. So, and there are going to be recruiters that don't care, and there are going to be recruiters that care. There are certainly ways that you can promote this as functionally a full-time position. So I'm not concerned about it. And I think it's very explainable. Anything, you can also explain why you were laid off. Is there a stigma to having been laid off previously? So some recruiters may have a stigma, some hiring managers will, and some will understand it's not a big deal any longer. So I would not worry about it. Congratulations on getting the extension. Maybe it'll turn into a full-time role. If not, you will demonstrate good work, good value to your next hiring company.
Yeah, and I think the reason why anyone might be concerned, I guess, if you don't show long-term staying power. But Colleen, Cindy, I mean, 1 year and 3 quarters, to me, that says, I mean, it's a full-time role without being a full-time role.
Yeah. It started as a 6-month contract, then extended to the end of this year, now extended to the end of next year. And it's an organization with tons of big transformation change kind of projects. So I think it's good career-wise, longer term, but just wanted to kind of get that perspective. So thanks.
And clearly you're delivering.
It's an issue. Yeah, I don't think it's an issue at all, and a testament to your work that clearly they need someone to do the role you're doing, and you're the one they want to do it. Okay, I don't see any other questions in chat for right now. We will move along. There'll be another intermission break in a few minutes, and then plenty of time at the end. And by the way, I am making these slides available to you at the end of the program. So if for some reason I went a little bit quickly and you want a slide, a couple of the slides do have links that'll be live in the download, so you can get that later. And of course, the group is recording this as well. There it goes. And let's move on. So the intermission curtain opens, just like if you were in the theater. So now that you're thinking about being a consultant, you may wonder, do I need to have my own company? And the answer is no, you don't need to have your own company, not typically. There are a couple of options if you don't have your own company. But we'll talk about forming a company and what some of those options may be. There are many more than we'll talk about, but we'll talk about a couple of them. But what if your client requires a corp? What if they require that you have your own company? So more and more companies, hiring companies, will only engage with consultants and contractors when they come through a third-party company. It could either be that you are employed by a consulting company who places you on a contract, or that you have your own company that employs you. And the reason why they do that is there are more and more states are enacting laws to protect the employees. and also to protect themselves to get proper tax reporting. And so they usually have rules for what is a consultant. In New Jersey, there are 4 questions that you have to answer. I don't recall them off the top of my head. And so if you meet these 4 questions, you're an employee, you're not a consultant. So they may require you to have a company, and then that way it creates a legal entity barrier between you and them, and they can bring you on as a consultant. So one is find a friend who has a corp, or corporation or a company, and ask them to hire you. If you have a friend that you're close with that does indeed have a company, they can hire you, and that company can engage your employer company and bring you on as an employee of your friend's company and put you on a contract with them. So your friend's company can be the intermediary. Okay. Now, even though I've told you that we are friends talking to friends, so right now we're friends, I'm not the friend you can call to hire you for this arrangement. I just don't hire employees. I do bring on subcontractors sometimes, so I don't bring on employees, so I can't help you in that regard. Another is you can find a consulting company, and there are a lot of them that are out there. You probably get those emails, and contact someone and say, I've got a job. Will you hire me? And they'll be pretty eager to do that for a couple of reasons. One is they made no effort to get this free money, right? Because they're going to get a percentage of your rate. And they didn't do any recruiting or anything like that. They also get exposed to potential new clients. So they will be happy to do that. And so you'll be employed by the consulting company and put on a contract. Do be careful. Consulting companies, it's nothing illegal or bad, but they generally take a large percentage of the rate. It's not uncommon to get 40 or 50%, sometimes even more, that they take. The reason why is they have all the risk. They have all the effort to find you. But in this case, you may be able to negotiate that down. And the reason why is you brought them the business. They are going to pay your employment taxes and other things like that. That's got to be covered by the rate, and they got to make a little bit of money too. So just be aware. I don't think this is necessarily the best option, but it is an option. There's also a type of business called a split placement company. There are a few of them around. One is called Top Echelon. Another I found I don't have experience with is called NPA Worldwide. Top Echelon is a company I used when I found consultants who were not employed by a consulting company or didn't have their own company. What these companies are, they are professional employers. And what they will do, you bring them the business, much like I described with the consulting company, but that's what their business is. They don't do recruiting. They don't look for business. They don't look for consultants. They are there to act as a professional employer. And so you contact them and you tell them either how much you want to make, and then they'll bill their client, or how much the rate is going in. So you'll say, oh, I'm going to get $100 an hour, and then they'll pay you a rate. So this is a good option. I've hired people before or contracted for people before when I was in management and used Top Echelon, and I thought they were fair. Another is you can form your own LLC, limited liability company, or any other kind of company. And when you do, make sure you get an EIN, employer identification number. It's basically a social security number for employers, for companies. And this is something that you can do on your own, or you can hire an attorney to do that. In Pennsylvania, the cost of an LLC is $125 to register, so it's not terribly expensive. If you are not quite ready to start your LLC or register it, but you just want to reserve the name of your company, it's not yet a legal entity, you could pay for that too. I think they charge $50 or $70 for that. I don't think that's necessary. I think, when you're ready, just register the company. And then every 10 years, you have to renew it. It's called a decennial report every 10 years, and it's $70 and you pay that. It's like keeping your registration active. So it's $125 to start, and every year it's $70. Every 10 years it's $70. And it wouldn't surprise me 10 years from now, that goes up from 70 to a new rate. These are different forms of business entities. And look at the sentences at the bottom. This is a very oversimplified summary of several types of business entities that you can form in Pennsylvania. These are subject to very complex sets of laws and regulations. You will absolutely need to speak with an attorney or a tax professional to learn more about these in great detail. Again, we're just friends talking to friends, and we're just going to touch on some of these. A sole proprietor is basically not a legal entity, essentially. It's basically you just calling yourself a consultant, but you're not registered in the state of Pennsylvania. Or if you're in New Jersey, you're not registered in the state of New Jersey. So there's nothing, you don't have to form yourself. You don't have to grab organizational documents. There is something called liability, personal liability. So for lack of a better description, we'll call liability, you made a significant mistake or you caused some sort of action in the company that hired you that cost them something, and they want you to reimburse them. And so your reimbursement obligation is a liability. It could even be something, you broke something in the office, like you broke the copier and they need to buy a new one, they want you to pay for it. So whatever that is. So as a sole proprietor, anything that you're potentially liable for, you are personally liable for, and they can sue you and come after your car, your house, anything you own. The next three are forms of legal business entities in Pennsylvania. Typically for the consultant, the most common is called an LLC, Limited Liability Company. And there's different types of LLCs. We'll just talk about the sole member. Technically, you do form the company with organizational documents. The organizational documents come into two types. One is what you're actually filing with the state. And the other is what you're creating for you and if you have partners or for yourself. And so that's up to you to create. Any sort of liability that may be incurred is going to be incurred by the corporation and may not be incurred by you personally. So I'll give you an example of how it was explained to be by my attorney. Let's say as an LLC, you are brought in to do some financial planning and analysis. And then you make some sort of significant mistake in the company for $100,000, and the company feels you made a mistake and you owe them the $100,000. So they sue your company. Well, your company may not be worth $100,000. Mine isn't. Mine is worth the price of my desk, price of my computer, my laptop, my printer, a few things. My company is probably worth $20,000. So they sue me for 100. They sue my company for 100. They can close me down and I can liquidate everything for 20,000. So there's the limit of liability. The other thing you have to think about, though, is this is America. We can sue anybody for anything. They're also going to sue not just your company, but the person you put on the project. So if you subcontracted to somebody else, that's fine. But if you're the person you put on the project, they may come after you personally, and they'll come after your company. So if that's not quite clear, and if you want better information how it pertains to you, you do need to speak with your own tax professional, your own legal professional. In both the cases of sole proprietor and LLC, the income that you get, the expenses that you accrue, all show up in your personal income tax on what's called Schedule C. The next is called a C Corp. That's the traditional Inc. at the end of your name. It is a legal business entity in the state of Pennsylvania as well as the state of New Jersey. You do form an articles of incorporation. You create bylaws. The state does require that. Your level of personal and professional liability is the same as an LLC, so the corporation gets sued as well as anybody on the project. But your tax is done different, because what happens in a C Corp, the corporation is taxed separate, and then you as an employee will be taxed for your income. So the revenue that comes in is taxed, and then your salary is taxed personally. So they call that double taxation. You do need to talk to a tax professional for a couple of reasons. One is make sure you understand to the extent that your salary is actually a deduction against the corporation. So is it a true double taxation? Probably not. The other thing is, if you earn a lot of income at the corporate level, you may actually find it makes more sense to go through a corporation formation rather than LLC. So let's say, I'll make just an example. A reasonable salary for you as an LLC or as a corporation is $100,000, but you had a good year and your total income was $250,000. So you have a couple of choices. You can take the income of 250,000. You might be taxed at a higher rate or pay more taxes. But you have a little bit of creativity, which is when it's a C Corp, when the Corp is the entity, you can get paid a salary of $100,000, and taxes on $100,000 for you will be the same regardless of the organization. But that extra $150,000, let's assume that's after expenses, you can have the corporation pay you, an owner, a dividend, pay you a dividend of $150,000. Why might that be different? Well, the dividend is taxed as ordinary income, but it's not a salary. Remember, you're going to pay 15.3% of salary tax, of employee tax. So you can save the 15.3% against the $150,000 because it's dividend, it's not salary. So you can get creative. You'll want, again, talk to a tax professional. And an S Corp, another type of corporation, is a kind of a hybrid between the LLC and the C Corp. And basically, for organizational documents and personal liability, it's the same as the C Corp. But as a partnership, it shows up differently on what's called a Form K-1. So again, these are very oversimplified discussions, even though we spent about 5 minutes on this slide. You do need to speak to the professionals accordingly to get better information as it pertains to you. If you want to start and operate and grow your own business in Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania makes it easy. The government makes it easy. As a matter of fact, this link provides a guide to starting a business. Now, when you download this slide, this link is live and active, or you could just copy and paste it. But it's a great resource when you are aspiring to start a business, or if you have a business and you just need new resources or resources to help you grow. And among the things they offer are planning guides, some topical guidance. They keep those things updated all the time, especially as tax laws and business laws change. They do provide links and resources for additional support. So there's a lot of information that the state tries to provide people that are starting their own business. How much should I charge? A question that comes up quite currently. And it's a good question because how much you should charge, it helps you understand how much you're going to compete against other people like you and how much income you're going to earn. You're going to charge a market rate. The market rate is the average price a customer will pay for your type of consulting service. And there's typically a range for your type of consulting service. So if a consultant like you typically would receive about $100 an hour, then the market rate is somewhere between $75 and $125. This is not gospel. This is an experiment. And the reason why is if you're new to consulting, maybe it's a little bit lower. Maybe it's closer to the $75. Maybe it's going to be under the $100. If you've been independent and known as an expert and well-branded and people really want your service, you'll probably get a little bit more than $100 an hour. So you have to understand what the market rate for your service is going to be. If you want to get a rough idea of how to calculate, take your last annual salary or the amount that you feel you need. You divide that by 52 weeks, and then you divide it by 40 hours, which is how much you work in your week. And now you know what you should be expecting to earn on an hourly basis. And by the way, that number is 1920. 50 times 40, 1920. So you just divide by that. And then consider all additional costs that you may incur or that you want coverage for. You're going to be buying your benefits. What is that going to cost you on an annual basis? What is your admin time going to cost? You can take a couple of weeks off. You want that covered as well. I don't mean they're going to pay for your whole vacation, but maybe account for those hours. And what about 401k or other benefits like that that may be entitled to some sort of compensation through the company? And add those in and come up with also divide that by number of hours in a year so you can add that to your hourly rate. And then that'll give you a guideline for finding what you really need to work for. But again, that may be lower or higher than the market rate. You have to be in the market rate, but this will give you a guide of what to charge. Here's a website on founder.com, a webpage on founder.com that also gives you a lot more guidance into finding the rate that is right for you. So hopefully this will be a good resource for you. Again, this is a live link on the download. Do I need insurance, or what's called errors and omissions insurance? So, you've probably heard about contractors that are quote unquote licensed and insured. Do you need insurance? Well, errors and omissions insurance is a liability insurance that protects the companies, their workers, and any other professionals under the contract against any claims of negligence or inadequate work, right? So if you went in and as an accountant and you made a mistake on the books and it caused them an underpayment of taxes, and now they are hit with a big penalty, they may come after you for that penalty. So this insurance will protect you from those types of mistakes. And so who gets sued? Everybody. In America, everyone gets sued. It would not be uncommon for, let's say, the hiring company to sue lots of people, maybe you, your company, anybody that you put on the project. They're trying to get reimbursed. They're trying to be made whole from anybody. So there's not an automatic protection by working at a company. Do I need error and omission insurance? Well, it depends on what your risk involvement is, and it depends on your risk tolerance. If you're going to be working in a field or an area where there's not an opportunity to break a lot of things, you may not need a lot of errors and omissions insurance or any at all. But if you're going to be doing a job where there's the potential to make a mistake that could be costly, you'll want the errors and omissions insurance. And so that will become important. Sometimes hiring companies will ask for a minimum. They'll say, we want to make sure you have a minimum of $1 million of coverage. Okay. And so now you know. And so you would need to speak with your own insurance professional to find out exactly what types of insurance coverage you need. In addition, you may need riders to existing insurance policies. I'll give you an example. This is what I was explained to a friend of mine who's an insurance agent. Let's say you sometimes drive your car to visit your clients. Okay, but your car is registered as a personal vehicle, not a business vehicle. And on the way to visiting your client, you get into a car accident. Nobody was hurt, but the car was damaged, fender bender. And you call up the insurance agent. They may say, where were you going? And you could say, I went to visit my client. And they may say, you use that car for business. We're not covering it. That was an inappropriate use for coverage. So you may want to find out ahead of time from your insurance provider, do you need a rider if you are using it for that type? A lot of times that may not be an issue. Sometimes it may. Let's say you're working out of your house. You have a home office and a bedroom, a spare bedroom, and you have your desk and your computer, and that's fine. And then every once in a while, something needs to be sent to you. Maybe a stack of papers, or maybe you're ordering some equipment, and it's being delivered by UPS in a big box. Okay. And so the UPS worker gets off the truck, walks up your walkway, and before they put the box down, they trip on your step and they injure themselves. Maybe he or she breaks a wrist. And they want to sue you for not clearing your steps. Maybe there was snow or ice on the steps. And you're thinking, that's no problem. I've got homeowners insurance. That's no problem. I've got an umbrella policy. Homeowners insurance is a personal insurance. You may not be covered for the delivery or use of your property, delivery to or use of your property for business purposes. You may need a rider for that. Again, talk to your insurance professional. So I'm just kind of letting you know, I've learned about these things. You need to find out what's appropriate for you. And if it's, are you tolerant of that? In other words, if the UPS driver sues you, do you have enough money in the bank, or do you want appropriate insurance to protect you? Do I need to collect sales tax? When I learned about this, this was the most fun thing, the most fun process I went through. Yes, but only for taxable products and services. And so I went through this in New Jersey. I don't collect sales tax in any other state, and I don't really need to. Products are taxable unless Pennsylvania says they are not. That's what they told me in New Jersey when I raised my hand in a seminar. What's taxable? Products are taxable unless Pennsylvania says they're not. I'll give you an example. Some food items, most food items, are not taxable. If you go to the grocery store and you buy milk and dairy products and poultry products and cereals and stuff, you're generally not paying sales tax on that. but you might pay sales tax on consumables like candy or soda. So Pennsylvania does outline this. If you are selling a service that's taxable, you need to be aware of it. If you're selling a product that's taxable, you need to be aware of it. Services tend not to be taxable unless Pennsylvania says that they are. And so you just need to understand if they are. There's a website that you can go to on the Pennsylvania Treasury website that'll guide you into understanding if the services that you are going to provide are taxable. So I don't know specifically about Pennsylvania, but I'll give an example. Professional services that I provide, building websites, running tech projects, and this like, are not taxable to my clients. So I typically do not collect sales tax. I do report sales tax as zero every quarter because I'm registered and obligated to. But if I sell a product, like if I was going to sell a computer or some piece of hardware and deliver it to my client, and then set it up, the setup service technically would not be taxable unless the setup service is mixed with the delivery of the product. The product is taxable. So sometimes the whole service and product are taxable. So just make sure you understand. You tend to file either monthly, quarterly, or annually, depending on how much tax you're collecting. In New Jersey, for me, I file quarterly. But if you have a lot of tax, like a big department store will file monthly. Some small businesses will typically file quarterly or annually. If you want to register your business and learn more about sales tax in Pennsylvania, here's the website that you go to. If you want the website in New Jersey, I'll give that to you. Just send me an email. I'll give you my contact information later. And you get a sales tax certificate, at least in New Jersey you will. So here's my sales tax certificate. It's not framed, it's just in a folder in my desk. Oh, okay, so here we are at our next intermission. And let's see. Any questions?
I don't see any questions, David. I do see a
Yeah.
comment from Pam, who also had to drop off,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But she does talk to the whole pricing structure, and I know I experience it too. I don't know any consultants that haven't. When you first start, it's a challenge asking for money. It actually always can be. And the question is, how much is right? And oftentimes people, oh, I can't charge too much, I'll lose, whatever. So I don't know if there's any psychology or any thoughts you have around beyond what you said.
When I started, my rates were very low. And I've developed this weird mentality, I guess because I'm a helper, giver kind of thing. I've never raised my rates for existing clients. So I have my first client I ever had, I worked with him, it's over, but I'm still working with my second client. And I still charge them a very insanely low rate. They're also a not-for-profit, so they benefit certainly from not having to spend as much. And then over the next 2 years, my rates did go up to a point that I've only charged new clients new rates, and the old clients I leave the old rate. And the reason why I'm very grateful that my old clients are still sticking with me, and to show appreciation, I haven't had a need to raise my rate. It doesn't mean that I may not in the future, but that's what I did. But I started low and brought it up to market value once I was an established brand.
Yeah, I think that's very typical, right? I do think too, for those of you out there who are thinking of being a consultant or whatever, it might sound weird, but for me, it's still a big challenge. I've been doing it for 7 years. But I find a lot of times I'll just practice saying the numbers out loud. And the more comfortable you get saying them, then when you're in that situation with a prospect or a client, it's easier. It just somehow is because you've said it before.
Yeah, I guess if you're a little concerned, that doesn't seem to be a problem for me. The only time it was the very first time I got laid off at my second time. And the very first time I had a consulting gig, someone reached out to me and asked if I could help set up a blog site for them. And it was really someone I had known through the job seeker support community. So I was really doing a favor in my mind. And when it was over, he said, "What do I owe you?" And I kind of went, humana. Now, I was a hiring manager. I had consultants work for me. I know consultants get paid. I just didn't think of it as me. So that was the only time I did. But I embraced it. Not a problem. It's known. People know that they should pay for your service.
Right. And people don't question a doctor's fees or a other auto mechanics fees. I mean, it is what it is, right? So but I do find that a lot of people I do speak to, it can be a challenge for people.
See, I'll negotiate with anybody, anytime, over almost anything. I've actually negotiated once with my doctor over a visit. I just thought it was inappropriate, and we talked about it, and he
Oh,
said,
he
"All right,
said-
I'll just take the insurance assignment. I won't charge you the extra."
I'll charge you less. I'll take your appendix out. I'm just not going to close you up for that price. You got to close yourself up.
Yeah, there was a procedure, and then there was the follow-up, and he charged me for the follow-up. And then I had the copay, and I said, I think, you got a lot for this procedure, and I don't begrudge you for that, but the follow-up should be part of the thing. And he said, yeah, but you're taking up office time. So what we agreed was he's going to file it with my insurance, but he won't charge me the copay. So I saved that $30 or whatever. All right, so there are no questions right now, which is fine. So I will just move along. And here's the last curtain that opens. So now that I've given you reasons, hopefully, to consider being a consultant, let's really talk about now how to become a consultant. And it's really a very easy process. And if we were in person, I would say, repeat after me. And usually the room all says at the same time, I am a consultant. It is that simple. That's all you have to do or say to be a consultant. All the other things we talked about starting a company or collecting sales tax, are just things that get done now that you are a consultant. So this is all it is to hang a shingle. So what becomes important, though, kidding aside, you want to identify the niche where where you have knowledge, experience, and support, because this is where you're going to be competing. This is the type of work you're going to be offering and promoting, or this may be the industry that you're going to be looking in. And knowledge and experience become very obvious, but support as well. And here's why. When you were employed, if ever a question came up or an issue came up and you didn't know the answer, there were people in the company you can talk to, coworkers or your boss. But when you're self-employed and independent, you may not have that. So you have to know who within your network are people that you can rely on when you need additional information. Or maybe you have to find websites or service providers that can provide that. So make sure you understand those. Then research your target market. Find that target market and do research. Make sure you understand, how do I compete? How do they like to hire? What are the things that are important to them? What's the market rate in that market? What are the tools that they use? Everything about it. Make sure you understand, because that really goes to leveraging your knowledge and your experience. And then begin to alert and manage your professional network. You might put discussions out on LinkedIn. You might send email blasts out. You might put posts on different social media sites. But you want to start letting people know that you are indeed now an independent consultant. And also make sure you speak with an accountant and attorney, just to make sure you have dotting your I's and crossing your T's about everything legitimate, and they'll protect you accordingly. So something kind of cute, when I became formally announced I'm a consultant, one of the things I did was I got myself a post office box. I got it at a UPS store. And so that I have a business address. I didn't want most of my clients to know my home address. And then I sent out an email and I said, I'm now a consultant, and here's my address, 174 Nassau Street, Princeton, number 100, Princeton, New Jersey. And my brother-in-law, who knew I was starting my own business and working from home, sent me an email and congratulated me for opening my office at 174 Nassau Street, number 100. I just happened to get a terrific box number. I got box 100. And I've decided I'm going to keep that box number, and I'm going to bequeath it to somebody in my will. It's just too good of a box number. So, but I did alert my network to let them know I'm independent. And people contacted me, and I had started virtual discussions with people. It was very helpful. Also, develop a business plan. There are two types of business plans that are out there, and there's probably more, but two broad categories. One is quite big. It might be a 3 or 4 inch binder. Who knows? It's going to be filled with a lot of information. It's going to talk about the target market. How are you going to target yourself to the market? What's your marketing plan going to be like? What are your funding? What is your growth for income? How do you project it? How do you support that? A lot of information about business growth, maybe for the next 5 years, all sorts of things like that. It can be quite big. Mostly you won't need that. That type of plan is only going to be important if you're seeking some sort of funding. Either you're going to a bank and you're looking for secured or unsecured funding, or you're going to go to venture capitalists or independent investors, where they're going to invest in you because of how well planned and thought out you are with your business. The other business plan could be a sheet of paper that you keep in a folder in your drawer. And it's going to talk about the types of clients that you're going to have, the types of services you're going to offer, the types of products you're going to sell. It'll be a one-pager. And the reason why you have that is it level sets you. If you ever get stuck wondering why maybe you're not getting a little bit of business right now, you may go back and look at it and see how you veered off your original plan. So that's the one that you're most likely going to develop. Now that you are a consultant, you're going to name and create your company. And if you're going to register it, do so as the LLC or Corp. And you also, through that same state of Pennsylvania website, you can search to understand what name or names are available. Because as a corporation in your state, you cannot have the name of a company that's already established. Now, if somebody's a sole proprietor, not a legal entity, you can reuse that name. It's a little sleazy, but you can. But in terms of legal entities, you can't use the name of another company registered in New Jersey. Also, register your web address and ultimately plan to create your website. But register your web address at the same time on the same day that you create your company or file to create your company with the state of New Jersey, state of Pennsylvania. And the reason why is there are nefarious people out there. They're called squatters. And what they do is they will comb the public records of newly formed and registered companies. It's public record. You just did a name search to see if the name is available. They do the same thing. It's public record. And when they see new companies, what these squatters will do is they'll go out and they'll buy a web address that's very similar to the name of the company. Only cost them 10 or 12 bucks. And the reason why is if you're not careful and you wait weeks or months, you want that web address, somebody else has it, they'll sell it to you or they'll resell it to you at a markup. It is not an illegal practice. It's a sleazy practice. It is not an illegal practice. It's only illegal to register a web address when the company is trademarked, like Coca-Cola or IBM or something like that. So I would say, as you think about names for your companies, not only are you looking in the Pennsylvania website, or if you're registering in New Jersey, their Treasury website, also make sure web addresses are available. And then later you can create your website. Develop your professional support network. Remember, who are those people that you can reach out to when you get stuck on a problem or you have a question that you can't answer, don't know the answer to on your own. You may need licensing. You may need certificates. You'll have to check within the state that you're in. Does your type of industry require licensing? Typically, most professionals don't, but maybe something like building contractors do. So just check into that. And certifications. You may say, I'm a project manager. I don't need to be PMO certified. You're right. You don't need to. You don't need a certification from PMI, the Project Manager Institute. However, if other people that are selling their contract services have a PMO, you may want that as well. So you look into those. Don't do this alone. Get advice from others. Certainly the professionals like the accountants and the lawyers and insurance professionals, friends of yours that have gone through this or have their own business and have their own experience. And then support organizations. There's SCORE. SCORE does have a chapter, I know, in Bucks County. I can only assume they do in the greater Philadelphia area. So look at score.org or look at the Small Business Development Center. They offer a lot of services for free, including SCORE does give mentors, business mentors, when you're starting your business for free. Update your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it says you are a consultant. Now, you can create a LinkedIn profile that says you're a consultant, even if you don't have any clients. Your bullet points may not be accomplishments, but services that you offer with those keywords. So put that there and make sure it doesn't have an end date, because it'll allow you to have your 100% complete profile. Let's talk about some ways to generate business. You've started your company and you're looking for clients. One is there are business networking groups. We are now in a job seeker support networking group. I'm not sure, maybe the Beacon group does have a second part that does help with business people as well. But there's BNI, LaTip, there are others. These are groups where you form referral relationships. You and the other members develop professional friendships, and you can refer to each other. Some of these groups do have, most of them do have membership fees. Sometimes there's membership fee to join, membership on a monthly or quarterly basis, and then you look into it, but develop those strong business relationships. Join meetup.com. Meetup.com is not the world's largest dating website. It is really a website that introduces you and helps you find groups that meet in person, although lately most of them have been virtual. So create a profile. It is completely free. Meetup is paid by the people who form these groups. It's kind of like LinkedIn groups on steroids. Create a professional profile with your professional interests, your professional services and products you sell, and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why you have that profile is Meetup as a program will run day and night and look for groups that match your profile and send you an email to let you know there are groups. And then attend these groups, maybe even join them. You can join them in Meetup, but by extension, you can join the in-person group. And there are two types of groups that you want to join. Well, maybe there's three types. One are groups within your profession, people that are like you. That can be used to help you grow your professional network of people that can help you as a support network. You're not going to get business from people like you because they're already doing stuff like you. Join groups of the industry where you want to compete as a consultant. So it could be different corporations, small business organizations, industry organizations where you're going to do jobs. You may not find as many consultants like you, but you may provide people who may consider hiring you. And then join groups of just personal interests. If you're into gardening at home, join a gardening at home group. If you're into pets and dogs, join a pets and dogs group. The reason why is you never know who's in that group. They may be someone else who also likes dogs, who happens to be in your industry. So those are the types of groups you want to join. And the same with LinkedIn. Use the same model for joining LinkedIn groups. You can join up to 100 groups, join them. Attend professional associations and conferences. And again, within your industry and within the industry, you're going to compete. Within your industry, you get resources. In the industry you compete, you have prospective clients. And let your network know what you're doing. Keep them apprised of what you're doing every once in a while. And then be active on social media as well. Promote things about yourself. Talk about yourself. Talk about your business. Talk about accomplishments. Where you're publishing articles. Where you're going to be attending sessions. Whatever is important. Let people begin to know about you and more about you. Health insurance. So one of the things is you may need benefits. You may need health insurance. Now, of course, if you're in a marital relationship and your spouse has health insurance, you may be able to join the spouse's health insurance. But if not, or if you're going to be the one who provides it, you may need the type of insurance that pays for certain medical or surgical or dental expenses incurred by you. And so some of those expenses can be quite expensive, and you need insurance to cover them. If you're self-employed, you may be able to find private individual insurance. Now, that's going away more and more because of the healthcare exchange. We'll talk about that. And it does vary state by state. I don't know the rules in Pennsylvania. It's just not something I looked into. But you may want to contact an insurance broker to see what he or she can offer you. Another is you can look for a group plan through professional associations or industry associations. I don't know the industry association in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It's called New Jersey Business and Industry Association. They're a large group of companies. Their members are companies, almost like a giant chamber of commerce. And because they have so many members, they do offer group insurance for their paid up members. So these may be places either through professional associations or industry associations where you can price and join insurance. There's also the healthcare exchange. I don't know in Pennsylvania if it's healthcare.gov or if Pennsylvania has its own exchange. It's also called the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. But the healthcare exchange is really the way that's replaced purchasing private insurance. So where I mentioned buy private insurance, a lot of states are doing away with that. And typically there are several insurers that sell insurance on the exchange in your state. And they also have usually a state option as well, which typically is for very low income. In New Jersey, the website is Get Covered NJ. That's their website. So they have their own exchange that replaces the national exchange, but it's essentially the same rules. If you're 65 or older, you're eligible for Medicare plus the supplement plans. That may be relevant for you. However, if you're 65 and older, and you are the insurance provider for your family, so if you have a spouse and children who are younger than 65, Medicare won't cover them. Your spouse has to wait until he or she turns 65 to sign up for Medicare, and it's not likely your children are going to be 65 anytime soon. So they still will need likely insurance through the healthcare exchange or some other means. So you'll have to look into that. Again, talk with your insurance professional. Provide a lot of guidance for you. So as we sum up, home stretch right now, consulting is an alternative to full-time employment. And while there are pros and cons, some of the pros are, it is certainly a resume gap filler. You can develop a wider variety of experience. Your resume can become more robust. You'll certainly get paid while you're a consultant, even if you're not yet a full-time employee. And you may even get paid more than being hired as a full-time employee. You don't need to become a corporation. If you do, you can. LLC is the most likely one for an independent professional. And then just declare, I am a consultant, and get yourself started. So that is the program. If you want to download the slide deck, it is right here on my website, princetontechadvisors.com, princetontechadvisors.com. And at the top, there's a workshops tab. You click there. And there's also on that a workshops page, recently offered programs. All of my programs are listed. The ones from this year are all listed. This one is going to be right at the top. I'm doing another presentation tomorrow. So tomorrow that one will be at the top, and this will be the second one down. And so you can download the slide deck from there. If Ford or Ken contact me, they want me to send the slide deck to send to you, I'm more than happy to do that as well.
Well,
And
thank
so
you.
this is opportunity for any additional questions.
Okay, David, there is one question I'm going to get to. Ford actually lost power in his house, so he's not with us right now. The question being, do you have any advice on freelancing platforms? I guess, in other words, how do you get your name out there where people might go find you?
So there are several that are out there where you can publish yourself. I think Fiverr is one. I don't use them myself, but you can look for them and Google them. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I do use LinkedIn quite a bit. For that, I use Meetup as another platform. Certain industries have their own platforms. I think it benefits you to understand where your client audience hangs out. Those are the ones you're going to want to use. So don't use a platform just because it's a consulting platform if your prospects aren't going to be there. Using social media can be time consuming. Use the ones that make the most sense. Yeah.
Okay, great. What about setting up a separate business bank account?
Oh, okay. Yes, separate bank account, and oops, I don't have it here. Separate credit card as well. You will form that not with your social security number, but with your EIN. So I do have a separate bank account, and I've got one business credit card.
Okay, great. Last wrap up from really done a great job in technical consulting, the considerations people need to have and all that. How about from the emotional side of your gut? What would you say if someone said, David, what do you think about consulting? What would you say? What do you love about it? And what do you wish was different?
So it's a very personal answer. And the reason why is the reasons why consulting were right for me now may not be the reasons why they're right for you now, other than income, that people want. So for me, I am now in a point in my career and my lifestyle, my family lifestyle, that I don't have to work full time, but I want to keep busy. My wife works full time, but she works in a job where she gets like 5 weeks of vacation. So I have a lot more opportunity for free time, a lot more time to myself to do things that I really enjoy, although I do enjoy working in technology, but the personal stuff. So that's fine. I have the opportunity to meet friends for breakfast. This morning I went walking with 2 friends, and I didn't have to be at work, walking at 9 o'clock. So I like that flexibility. I also like that if I meet a client and I don't like them, or like the assignment, I don't have to take it on. But when I used to work for a company, the boss assigned me a project, and if I didn't like it, I had to do it. And so, and I did it because, I was proud of my work, but it wasn't as fun. So I like the flexibility for me.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I don't see any more questions, but again, David, I really want to thank you for a great presentation. Lots of really practical information as well as food for thought. So that it was really great. I think you lived up to expectations.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.